On this day in history, in 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland with a massive troop concentration and airstrikes on cities like Helsinki. And since it's a lovely overcast day on campus here in LA, I figured I'd take a moment and share a few thoughts on it. So first, a little bit of context. Finland was for a while a part of the Russian Empire and waged a revolutionary struggle for independence during the Russian Revolution. That was successful. Several places managed to do so during the Russian Revolution. Others failed, including Ukraine and the Caucasus states and whatnot. But the Baltic states and Finland and Poland all managed to break away. Now, the Russians were fairly resentful of this. There were frequent attempts at rapprochement, trying to build stronger connections, but Finland was pretty cool to a lot of this stuff, especially since, Stalin had been purging people and forcing collectivization and whatnot, so not terribly desirable. So when the Nazis approached the Soviets for an alliance, this creates an opening. Stalin was desperate to believe that the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was actually real. That's a whole big conversation in itself. He desperately wanted to avoid war and knew he wasn't ready for it. But for the Nazis, it was only a delaying tactic, only to push this out for a bit. But it did, in a secret provision of that treaty, carve up Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. The Baltic states and Finland and Eastern Poland were all given to the Soviet Union, and Hitler was given a free hand in Western Europe to do whatever the hell he wanted. The Winter War itself didn't last very long, largely because the Soviets proved singularly unprepared for the kind of combat that they experienced. The losses on both sides are quite high, but really disproportionate. The Finns lost something a bit over 25,000 troops, while the Soviets lost somewhere around 150,000. That's not counting the wounded. The Finns would ski around them and pick them off a bit at a time, all kinds of crazy shit. But eventually, the fact that the Soviet Union is a much larger country was going to be decisive. In any kind of war, small powers tend not to hold up against large powers for long. And there were efforts to try and provide foreign aid. The Brits and the French were both interested. Neither of them liked the Soviet Union. But they couldn't get it all together in time. Part of that was just transport issues. Sweden couldn't let them use her territory to move things across because that would have triggered an invasion by the Nazis. So they had to find a way to get stuff there, and before they'd figured any of that kind of shit out, the Finns were forced into a surrender that actually handed over a significant chunk of their territory. Sadly, though, there's a lot of bad blood here, and when the Nazis later broke their alliance and invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, this caused the Finns to go back into war against the Soviets in the continuation war as a Nazi ally, which is a really sad sort of circumstance to find yourself in. Had they actually received better aid in the first place from the Allies, this might not have been necessary at all. But no one was really prepared for this kind of conflict, and the surprise invasion here probably really took people by surprise in the first place in 1939. So anyway, just a quick anniversary, this day in history thought. Have a good morning.